Hey everyone, great to connect with you again today. We continue our regular worship schedule this Sunday, services at 8:30 and 11, and the 11 o'clock service is streamed as usual. Kids Connect, Youth Sunday School, and Adult Discipleship are at 9:45. This is the fifth Sunday in Lent, and I'll be preaching about another of the questions that Jesus asks in the last hours of his life. This question is, what will happen when the tree is dry? Over the years, we've had a few instances of our basement flooding. In one way or another, the flooding comes back to the sump pump. One time it got accidentally unplugged. Another time a power outage prevented it from working. A couple of times the motors burned out. I've been thinking about this recently because this problem is most prevalent at this time of year when a combination of rain and thawing creates more water. Not too long ago, as someone who is much more knowledgeable than I about these things was helping us with the pump in order to prevent another flood, wondered if the problem with the pump might be related to a problem with our drainage system. Even when it's not real wet, the pump tends to run numerous times a day, more than it should. This led to the idea that perhaps the water's not actually being pumped away from the house as it's supposed to be, but is just circulating back around to be pumped out again and again. And as soon as the weather enables us, we're going to be checking that out. You know, sometimes the church is like our sump pump. Instead of learning and growing in order to share with others, we just keep circulating where we are. Instead of thinking of the blessings of our resources as the means to generosity, we keep what we have in order to just keep gaining more. We're tempted to do this with our money. We're tempted to do this with our time, with our gifts and abilities. We're tempted to do this with our knowledge. We're tempted to do this with our faith. We just keep cycling around what we have. The problem is, it doesn't make the church better. It creates a flood. Things get ruined. Why? Because the church isn't operating the way it's supposed to. We're created to gain so we can give. We're created to have so we can share. We're created not for hoarding, but for generosity. We're created to be instilled with faith so that we can share that faith with others. And we do this with our resources, our knowledge, as well as our faith. Jesus says, freely you've received, freely give. And in an even more cosmic sense that reveals God's great and grand plan for dealing with human sin, in Genesis 12, it tells us that God calls Abraham and says to him, I will make you into a great nation and I will bless you. I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. There's a pattern to the people of God that is planted and rooted into the essence of who God is and of God's great and grand plan to redeem his creation. We take in so that we have resources to give out. We are blessed by God so that we may be a blessing for God to others. It's when God's people have deviated from this plan that major problems occur. It's primarily because the alternative to this plan is not that God's people become so holy that they can't relate to anyone else. Rather, it's because the alternative to this plan is that God's people become so self-absorbed they don't care about anyone else. And as the Apostle Paul writes to the Philippians, it's only when you embrace the life-giving mind of Christ that you're truly the people of Christ. It's not that we aren't permitted to hang on to anything. It's not that we shouldn't spend a lot of time engaging and nourishing our faith. It's more a case of an attitude that we are always looking for ways to give and share what we have. And what's fascinating, ironic, and counterintuitive is that this attitude doesn't create discontent in us. Actually, it's a great source of joy. And why is that? Precisely because it is the mind of Christ. And perhaps this is why in his short letter to the Philippians, Paul speaks so often about joy. So let me encourage you as I encourage myself. Let's be people who aren't content to cycle what we have by keeping it to ourselves. But let's be continually thinking of how we can share what we have to the glory of God as agents of his kingdom in this world. Father, thank you for all of your blessings. As we develop what you give us, as we nurture what you give us, as we cherish what you give us, fill us with a passion to share all that we are and all that we have for your glory and for the sake of your kingdom. Amen. Thanks again for joining me. Have a wonderful day.